This is ninth period composition 2 class. Please come to order. I want to tell you how flattered I am that you're all here today. So seldom, but with trips and games and one thing and another.
On that track, I won't be here tomorrow.
I know. You told me you're going tomorrow. You in?
Right.
Thank you. The 17th time. All right. Now then, we begin today, just as a means of capturing your attention, with a bit of trivia. Trivia question for today, April 21st, is the following. Which of Beethoven's symphonies begins with 3 repeated notes?
His fifth.
Very good. I've been asked to take you on a small, short tour of the room, show you some of the highlights. I say this because I happen to like the pictures. I just flip it over till it comes out to the same monthly days that we have this year. For instance, the 21st is a Thursday. In 1966, it was exactly the same, April. Would you believe that? April 66 and April 88 are both the same. Fine coincidence. Most of these were gifts from students. This is a miniature fig tree. This is a ever-blooming hibiscus that my homeroom gave me before they departed 2 years ago. This is a cactus plant that I got from Patricia Hand. And this is a baby cactus that Natasha Lee gave me. This I got from a student who graduated a couple of years ago. It was about this big when I got it. Another thing that kids find of interest are my Latin sayings. I put those up there, and it's funny, every year at parents' night, the parents come in, and they sit down, and they look around the room, and as they're leaving, they always say, Mr. Hutchinson, I didn't know that you taught Latin. And rather than explain to them, I just let them go. Now, that, of course, is not Latin. It's phonetically. If you read it phonetically, that's in English. Would one of you like to attempt to read that phonetically? Viscostic?
Which one?
Notice this one. Notice.
Okay. Oh, see Billy, see her go, 40 buses in a row. No, Billy, them his trucks. See what's in them, cows and ducks.
Very good, very good. That's very good. Now we have another one over here. This is about an Irishman. Mr. McKay, are you familiar with the Irish?
I certainly am. I'm Irish myself.
How, what a coincidence. I thought perhaps you could read this one to the players.
Certainly.
About an Irishman named O'Grady.
O'Grady, a man at a city, saw what he presumed was a kitty. He gave it a pat, said, nice little cat, so they buried his clothes out of pity.
Very good indeed.
One of the things that makes his teaching so special is that he doesn't treat us like inferiors or kids. He treats us like friends, and we have lots of fun in this class. We do trivia at the beginning, and he loves to tell jokes, and it's really it's really a lot of fun.
My most memorable moment with Hutch was we were doing a mock trial in class, and I was one of the people in the trial, and my husband had sold me. And the trial lasted 2 days, and after the trial, he pulled me aside and he said, you did a really good job. And I said, thanks. And I wasn't expecting it. And he said, well, I want you to know I think you're going to make someone a really nice wife. And I was like, he goes, you know how you can tell things when people are talking, when they're in a part, you can tell things about them. He said, you're going to be a really special wife to someone. And I just thought that was really neat that he would come up and say that to me. So, it made me happy.
I think the thing that makes Mr. Hutch different than other teachers is that Mr. Hutch has a legend behind him. And that's one of the reasons that I took this class, was because I've always wanted to take a class with Mr. Hutch throughout high school, because people have told me in the past, whatever you do, take one of Mr. Hutch's classes, because it's different. And I don't know, I think you notice that right in the first or second day when you go on the tour of the room, and you find out that everything in this room has a story, and that adds to his legend, which I think is just that he's a fun teacher.
Goodbye, Mr. Hutch. We love you.
Hello, I'm Evan Truby from the Hopewell Valley Central High School here with Mrs. Burgess, sister of Mr. Hutch. Mrs. Burgess, do you think Mr. Hutch fits into the perfect brother category, or?
No. No, I'm afraid not. I wouldn't want him to be a perfect brother. that would be difficult to live with. He's been a good brother, a wonderful brother, but not perfect. He was extremely critical when we were growing up. When he was 4 years old, we lived in a large house in Trenton, and he one day decided to crawl out onto the roof of the house and walk around the ledge of the roof, which was very narrow.
Was Mr. Hutch popular with girls when he was younger?
Very popular.
I guess.
Always had a girl. And Court, being the take charge guy that he is still today, would organize what they were going to do that evening. In fact, he would even get dates for some of the guys if that were the case.
Were there any signs when he was younger that he enjoyed or had an knack for teaching, or was this unexpected career choice?
Well, as I say, he was a take charge guy from early on, and an organizer, and read constantly. Always had his face in a book. Was always reading something. I mean, I can't imagine Court doing anything but teaching school. And he's been fortunate too, because how many people work at a career for 40 years loving it. He's had a great rapport with, I'm sure, all the teachers for the most part, and with the kids. He loves them, and it's been that kind of a thing for him, and that's why he's been at it for so long. In fact, I was very shocked myself when I heard that he was planning to retire.
I understand your mother's in a nursing home. Do you and Mr. Hutch visit her regularly? Or?
Yes, we do. She's over at Lawrenceville Nursing Home, where she's been for 5 years. She's 92 years old and would love to be where I am right now.
Hi, I'm Kim Winger, speaking with Mrs. Ann Hutchinson, wife of Mr. Hutchinson. Mrs. Hutchinson, how did you first meet your husband?
I met Court at Trenton State Teachers College after the war in 1946. He was returning from the war and had already been to Trenton State for a freshman and part of his sophomore year, and I was there as a junior.
Many people have trouble adjusting to married life at first. Did you and your husband encounter this?
We're still encountering it just a little bit.
Do you and your husband split the household chores?
Not really, but he's very helpful. I taught for 4 years when we were first married, and he helped then, and then when I stayed home with the children, I did most of it. And but he's very willing to help dry the dishes or, do anything that I want him to do. Basically, I do most of it.
Does Mr. Hutch have any hobbies or pet projects laying around the house?
He likes gardening very much. He loves fiddling around the yard, and he does have a vegetable garden every year. He enjoys doing crossword puzzles, and he's kind of a Mr. Fix-It. He fixes things that nobody would want fixed or would believe could be fixed, but he does it, and they wind up being pretty well done.
Are there any memories in Mr. Hutch's teaching career that he is related to you?
Well, there are really so many that it would be difficult to hone in, but I thought a little bit, and at one point in his career, he had a serious eye operation and was out of school for 6 weeks. I finished out the year teaching for him, but what was so wonderful was the way the kids came to his support and aid. They came over here and read the exams to him so that he could mark them, and just did wonderful things to help him in that situation. And I think another thing that goes along throughout all the years with Court is that makes him feel very proud and very satisfied is when boys and girls come back from college and say, I did so much better in my freshman English because I had you.
Mr. Hutch's room is famous for all his plants. Do you think he'll bring them all home?
I don't think he would dare.
Do you have any plans for the future?
We haven't really decided on anything specific when Court retires, but we enjoy the theater, so we thought we could hop on a bus and go over and see a play in New York. We would like to travel. He's recently voiced an interest in going down to New Orleans. So we're just going to play it by ear and see how it goes.
What's it going to be like with Mr. Hutch around the house all the time?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see on that one, but I've had a lot of practice over a good many summers, and I think it's going to be okay.
Would you comment on Mr. Hutch's choice of teaching as a vocation?
Well, I think it was one that he hadn't really planned on from the very beginning. It just sort of kind of occurred to him when he was in school and got a chance at doing lectures in a school classroom situation that he found that he really loved it. And I think he's very fortunate in being able to do, as my sister-in-law said earlier, to be able to do something that he loves so much and to be able to contribute so much to society and have it be your job.
My earliest memories of living with my father would be as a child. I remember what I liked to do the most in the evening when he would come home from school would be to walk on top of his feet. I would put my feet on his feet, facing him, and hold his arms, and we'd walk around the house. And he was such a giant of a person, to me especially, that I would feel like a giant too, because he takes such big steps. I thought that was great fun.
I guess the earliest memories of my life with my father have to do with the things that he would take me to, just he and I, events we would go to, because he was at school all day, and I wouldn't always see him when he came home. But I recall him taking me to debates for the debate club. I recall him taking me to basketball games, Hopewell games, on the buses with the high school kids, going on paper drives, riding around a Jeep with Ricky Sindig and people like that. So I guess some of the earliest memories I have were things relating to Hopewell Valley.
Attending school where my father was teaching was an experience. I did have the advantage of him being so well liked that it helped me not only with the different peer groups, but even with the older kids that would sometimes pick on a incoming freshman. And at any time when some of the rougher characters, you might find yourself in a situation, I would have no problem as soon as they found out I was Hutch's son.
Older brothers are always had it tougher.
I never had my father as a teacher, except when you grow up with them, you're always in the classroom, so he's a teacher all the time.
He's given me a lot of advice. That's one of his fortes, giving advice. But I guess the one thing that he's told me that has stuck with me the most, that has probably done me the most good, is he always encouraged me to not burn my bridges behind me.
I think my father's best human quality is his honesty. For example, I'll say like he always says, for example, if he were to notice that the oil company forgot to send him a bill for a tank full of oil, and he thought that there was no chance of it being picked up, it wouldn't matter, he would make it a point to bring it to their knowledge.
I think the sense that he has of fairness and his concern for the underdog, the little guy, those are the qualities that I would admire the most.
I found as I was growing up that I liked being in front of groups of people more, especially after seeing my father in action as the MC at the AFS dinners. He used to MC the dinners, and he would be so funny, and I would be sitting there I was a child at the time, but I was so impressed by the fact that he could make so many people laugh that I think later in life I took every advantage I could to be in front of a group of people.
Yeah, the way I saw my father as an adolescent and the way other students saw him were almost like night and day. Students would come up to me and tell me what a neat guy he was. Not that I didn't think he was a neat guy, but how much fun he was, how terrific he was as a teacher. These were even bad kids. I mean, kids that were really bad kids in school. They related and thought he was terrific. But the thing that I think was the most distinguishing between my perception of him and theirs that impressed me the most was they used to tell me things that he would say, stories he would tell, and he would use profanity. And they would tell me about, they would come up to him and say something, and he would say, well, you don't need that damn stuff. And at home, he never used profanity. It was just, profanity wasn't in his vocabulary. And with other adolescents, my peers, he would use it now and then. And, when you're 16 years old, it's, you want adults to relate to you as adults and whatever. In the classroom with other students, he would throw out a curse word now and then, but at home he never did. Around me, he never did. And if he did, on those few occasions, you knew to hide under the bed, get out of the way.
My father's a man of principle, and he's a teacher always. And I think that he always wanted to impart any knowledge that he had on me as a child.
Primarily, I think I have a penchant for being thrifty. My mother says cheap, but thrifty's a better word to use. And I guess I get that from him. The one story that comes to mind is when I was in college. I had several other roommates, and one day we had ketchup. It was low. The ketchup bottle was almost empty, and I learned a trick from my father: is you take a little bit of water, run a little water in the ketchup, and swirl it around, and that way all that ketchup that sticks on the bottom or on the sides when the bottle's empty, you get to use it. You don't waste it. And one of my college roommates looked at me and he said, "What are we in poverty?" I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, why waste it?" And even recently, the other night, the kids, we were eating, the kids poured out the ketchup, and the ketchup came out like that all over the table. And my wife, Debbie, looked at me, and I said, "What?" And I had told her the story about at college, and she said to me, "Did you put water in the ketchup?" So I promised I wouldn't do it again. But I still go around the house, turn off the lights.
Dad, I want to wish you a lot of luck on your retirement. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
I guess he always had, and always, and still does, I guess, have very high standards. But I think in spite of those high standards and high expectations, I think we always knew that if you fell flat on your face, he'd love you just the same.
My first impression of Hutch as a teacher was that he was one of the first teachers I remember that treated a class very maturely. I felt very flattered to think he regarded all of us as young adults and not just kids in a class. He treated us respectfully, and I think through that we learned a great deal from him. Diane, how about you?
Well, Hutch is so much a part of the school that I don't have a first impression of him. I feel that he was always there in his bow ties and his tortoiseshell glasses and his tweed jackets and his button-down shirts. He was just always there. There is no first impression.
It's interesting to think that when I had Hutch, I was probably 17, and he seemed to me to be a very old man. He probably was then 27 or 28, but it's interesting over the years how this gap has closed between Hutch and I. We seem to be more contemporary now.
Right,
and I really think he's much too young to retire.
And he is not aged. If he was
definitely.
30 then, he's still 30.
He's 30.
Either that or he was 40 then and he's still 40. He's kind of ageless in that sense.
Good luck in your retirement, Hutch. I can remember sitting in your very first class here in Hopewell Valley in a September morning in 1947. Good luck from all the Ackermans.
I thought he was very effective, and I would second what you said about him treating a class with maturity, students with maturity. I remember when I was in 9th grade, I had him for public speaking, and we were given a poem that we were supposed to interpret. And when I got my paper back, I hadn't done well in this poem. And I argued with him. I said, "Well, this is my interpretation." He said, "No, it's incorrect." And I said, "Well, how can it be incorrect? It's my interpretation." Well, the point was, I understand now in retrospect what he was trying to get at. I was supposed to see things like symbolism, which I hadn't gotten out of the poem. But the point was that I could disagree with him, and I could argue with him, and I could present my case. It didn't change my grade, but at least I could do it. And that was valuable.
I also had an interesting experience with Hutch. thinking about learning things the hard way, in that I had a very close girlfriend who didn't do very well in English, but I usually got an A and worked much harder at it, and so she had a tendency sometimes to copy my papers, and I had a tendency to let her. We were close friends. And one particular paper that came back, I had gotten a D and she had gotten an A. And Hutch had put a note on the bottom of mine. This will teach you. Don't let someone copy your paper. And I did learn a hard lesson that way. Of course, my friend also ended up with an A, and I didn't.
I guess we go back 30 years. I always enjoyed the way you and Howard Bushell got along with each other. I liked your lively discussions. I always liked the way you agree with Steve Rossetti at our faculty meetings, too. That always ended a lively discussion to everything. And how well you got along with all the kids. And remember the magazine drives we used to have where all the kids were down in the gym and in the auditorium, so you stirred up so much enthusiasm. It's a long time ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. Have an awful good retirement, Hutch.
I always felt that he had very high expectations for us. I guess it goes along with treating students with maturity. He had very high expectations for him. I had him as a senior in 4B English, which is the equivalent of Honors English now. And I've often wondered, in retrospect, why I was in that class, because there seemed to be a lot of things that I just didn't get. I remember taking a final exam in which we had to read the Atlantic Monthly magazine, an article on China, and then develop a foreign policy for China. And I remember sitting there in the chemistry lab saying, what in the name of God am I supposed to write? I don't know anything about foreign policy. But it was a challenge. We had read the Atlantic Monthly regularly in class. We had read the New York Times. We had read 30 Days to a More Powerful Vocabulary. And we were encouraged to think, which was wonderful. My husband relates a story where he turned in a book report once. He was allowed to choose the book, and he turned in a book report on Pass That Puck. Now, this was an honors course. And Hutch's response to him was, Montleone, this isn't going to work. And he gave him a list of books from which he could select another book on which he was to write a book report. And the other books were things like Faulkner and Hemingway. The idea being that if you want to do something about someone with some macho, let's pick from Faulkner or Hemingway rather than Pass That Puck.
Hutch, you have a great naive way of assuming that everything's going to work out just because you say it does. And the trouble is, it usually does. When I was running for borough council as the extinct species Democrat in Hopewell Valley, I was looking for block captains. They said, go talk to you. So I came down to you and you said, sure, you do your end of the street. I said, well, I need one for Voorhees Avenue. You said, ask Jackie Chalifoux. She'll be happy to help out a Democrat. So I went up and I knocked on her door and I said, Coerte Hutchinson sent me. He said, you'll help me out. I'm a Democrat running for borough council. She looked pretty surprised for a minute. She gritted her teeth and said, okay, I'll do it. So I handed her a stack of absentee ballot applications and new registration forms, and every week I went to see her, and she did her work. And I think she did it because you said she would. So long, Hutch. We'll see you at the Democratic polls.
I also remember Hutch's amazing ability to remember everyone's last name.
I want to thank you for being my chauffeur on snowy days.
As a junior, those of us who decide to run for student council president were asked to make speech before the student body. And I gave my speech, and I wore glasses at the time, and I was nearsighted. So as I read the speech, the glasses interfered with my speech, and I took the glasses off and held them in my hand while I gave my speech. When we were all done, Hutch, who had been our advisor as we were making up these speeches, came and said, Purdy, what a great move! And I said, what are you talking about? He said, the thing with the glasses, it was wonderful. Well, it was that kind of enthusiasm he always had from Hutch, that kind of approval. I had done it inadvertently, but he thought it was a wonderful move and felt obligated to let me know that he had had caught his approval with that move. And that was the kind of thing that was real special about Hutch.
I want to congratulate you on your retirement, right? It's been a pleasure working, with you for the last 22 years, right? I enjoyed myself with you. You've always been a good teacher, highly respected, and I'll miss you. Put it that way, I'll miss you. I really miss you. Okay.
Okay, Hutch, don't forget, old teachers never die, they just fade away.
Happy retirement, Court. May you have the best years of your life ahead of you.
Bye, Hutch. It's been 20 fun years with you for me. I will certainly miss you. Bye-bye.
Court, I've enjoyed working with you for the past 10 years, and I wish you and Ann a lot of happiness in your retirement.
Hi, Hutch. You and I have gone for a long way back together, from Quimby's Prairie to the halls of Hopewell. We've watched our children grow in each other's classes, and now we're watching their children grow like doting grandparents. Irene Anderson wishes you all the fun and fulfillment in this new phase of your life as you start out as the 40 years, isn't it? 40 years of teaching that Hopewell offered. I want to thank you for vigorous arguments. I want to thank you for being a fabulous lunchroom raconteur. I want to thank you for the quips and quotes that you shared with colleagues, and for all the movements and agitation for things that needed to be changed, for all the details that you noticed that needed to be seen and noted as we went along. Congratulations and best wishes for a snappy retirement.
Hi, Hutch. Just wanted to say good luck on your retirement, and we'll miss all your questions at the faculty meeting.
TC, I wish you well. We're going to miss you, buddy. Been a long time together. Make sure you and Ann behave yourself both at during the time of the day when you're home together. Be careful now. Good luck to you.
Hi, Hutch. From one retiree to another, I wish you a lot of happiness in your retirement. Good luck to you.
Hutch, I can't resist the opportunity to just remind you that mathematicians enjoy manipulating words as much as they do numbers. A mathematician named Ray said the extraction of cubes is child's play. You don't need equations or long calculations, just hot water to pour on the tray. Goodbye, Hutch. Good luck. We'll miss you.
Been 12 years we've been working together. You didn't talk to me the first 3. You never talked to non-tenured people, but that's okay. I can understand that. And I just hope that some of the things that you shared with me, I can share with someone else when they come into this profession. Thanks. Good luck.
All right, Hutch, you've been an inspiration to all of us, and we'll always remember you reading The Raven to the students with the lines pulled and inspiring all our people. Lots of luck on retirement. We all envy you.
Hi, Hutch. I have to say that in all the years I taught here, you made me feel the youngest by always calling me kid.
Hi, Hutch. One dinosaur to another. I want to wish you the happiest of retirements, and I'll wave to you as I drive by each day and wish that I was there with you.
Wish you happy retirement, Dad. I know you'll probably be busy hunting, fishing, golfing, watching the Yankees. But whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy it and don't give Mom too much of a hard time. And good luck.
Here's the kid of the department wishing you the best wishes for a great retirement. I envy you.
Hutch, I want to wish you a happy retirement. You live close to the school, you come back and see us, okay?